So in today's session, we are going to discuss about the carbon market. In previous session, we discussed about climate change, how the global warming is happening, so why we need to control the temperature of Earth by 1.5 degrees centigrade or 2 degrees centigrade, and to control the global warming temperatures, all the countries joined hand together and they came up with some market-based mechanism. And we discussed that there are mechanisms which is known as CDM, that is Clean Development Mechanism. There are mechanisms which are JI, Joint Implementation, and there are some voluntary market mechanisms which are known as VCS mechanism. So in today's session, we are going to discuss about these carbon market internationally, how they operate, what are the types of carbon market, and how do they function. Key features of carbon market. What are those three key features? The first key feature is that there is a cap and trade mechanism. That means those who are having compliance or a mandatory requirement, their emissions are capped. They cannot emit more than that. So if the emissions are capped, either I reduce my emission on my own or I have to buy the carbon credits or emission reduction from somebody who has overachieved their target. So the first feature is the cap and trade mechanism. The second feature is it is verified that whether the carbon emission reductions have really happened or not. So the market mechanism, when it reaches to the sellable commodity like one carbon credit, this is measured and verified by third parties. Okay, they are known as designated operating entities. They are approved by the verifying entities such as UNFCCC or VERA or GCC. These are some platforms on which you register your carbon credit in the international market. We are going to develop the Indian market also. Now let us discuss what type of projects are taking place for emission reduction. So all the renewable projects are finding the opportunities to reduce carbon footprint. So 1 megawatt of solar project is typically producing about 2,000 ton. It is reducing about 2,000 tons of CO2 annually. If you are able to reduce some 2,000 tons of CO2 annually, then you are able to verify them, and those verified carbon emission reductions become a sellable commodity. The third type of projects are methane based projects. There are projects which are waste recovery projects, waste management projects. SF6 is also a pollutant gas. If you are doing some activities related to that, you can have biomethanations. If you have your effluent and you are putting effluent treatment plant and you are recovering methane rather than emitting it to the atmosphere. So all these are the types of projects which are certified for carbon emission reduction. Once they are verified and approved by third party, they become sellable commodity. So in this market, there are multiple entities which operate. So let us discuss one by one about these entities. The first entity is the entity who originate the carbon credit. They are known as project developers and who are doing a green project. It can be a solar, wind, or a renewable project. It can be a methane recovery project. So emission reduction is originated by the project developer, and once he prepares his report, another entity is the project verifier, or which is known as designated operating entity, DOE. So verifier's role is to check whether these carbon credits are authentic or not. Once they approve it, it is registered project at UNFCCC or GCC or VERA or whichever platform you may want to register it. So two entities we have discussed. The third entity is those people who may want to buy your carbon credit. They are known as voluntary buyer or the mandatory compliance buyers. So the buyers also come on the same platform for trading purpose. Then there are multiple other agencies which are regulatory agencies also who monitors the carbon market. So like Global Carbon Council who is one of the regulatory body. UNFCCC is one of the regulatory body. VERA is going to be one of the regulatory body, and now Indian carbon market is coming up, and MOEF and Bureau of Energy Efficiencies are going to become the Indian side of monitoring agencies, which are known as regulatory bodies. So emission reduction originates from the buyer, then it is going to the verifier, and then it is going to the purchaser on a trading platform, and it is being monitored by the regulatory body. So these are the typical entities in the carbon trading process. Now let us discuss a little bit about history of carbon market. The focus on carbon market started in early 70s when the first oil shock came and globally the oil prices started skyrocketing. The concern over the rising pollution was realized, and there was a acid rain in US. So that also led to some concern. Actually in early 70s it was not CO2 trading, it started with the SO2, sulfur dioxide reduction, and this was leading to some acid rain related symptoms. So that was the early significance of the carbon market. In 1992, the Earth Summit happened in Rio, and that led to developing some platform to create some mechanism, and a new entity was created that was named as UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. So it's a UN body which was entrusted to monitor the global warming, and the carbon market mechanisms were also developed by UNFCCC. In 1992, they came with a new market mechanism which is known as CDM, Clean Development Mechanism. This was under Kyoto Protocol. So in Kyoto, there was a group of countries met together, and the concept of CDM and JI was evolved in Kyoto. And what was that? The developed countries were given certain targets, and developing countries were not given any target. They were considered as Annex 1 countries. That means they were not having target, but if they are able to reduce some CO2 emissions, they will be able to sell them in the form of carbon credit. That's how the Kyoto Protocol becomes a very important historical significance in terms of the carbon trading. Then in 2009, the conference of parties happened in Copenhagen, and then there were some more regional initiatives developed. So for example, Mid-Atlantic region, they developed their own regional carbon market. US developed their own carbon market. The EU ETS also came up with their own schemes. The Japan also came up with their own carbon trading platform. Similarly, some Korean also came up with the carbon market, and now India is also evolving with carbon market. So these are the things which evolved over the period. In 2010, they came up with a cap and trade mechanism in California also, wherein US they said that we will develop our own market, and there they gave some capping to the companies that you cannot emit beyond that, and those who were able to reduce. So that was the market within US only. So the US regional market also came, that is the cap and trade market. In 2015, again the conference of parties happened in Paris. And the Paris Agreement becomes very, very important because globally people realize that the global warming is happening and we have to limit the global rise in temperature below 2 degrees centigrade, and that is what the limit was assigned, and all countries agreed that they will limit temperature by 2 degrees centigrade and they will aspire to limit it by little lower rather than 2 degrees centigrade to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And that is the reason we are all working hard to reach to these commitment levels of 1.5 degrees centigrade. Aspiration is 1.5 degrees centigrade, but we have agreed that at least 2 degrees though we have to manage. In 2009, in 2020, we also came up with some voluntary carbon mechanism, and lot of new market have come up. So Vera registry is there where voluntary carbon markets are being traded, and you can register your projects, and those who are voluntary carbon offsetting requirement. For example, those airlines are now offering you that if you want to go with zero emission travel of yours, you can have the option. So what they do is they will buy the carbon credits from this voluntary market to make this air travel zero emission air travel. So voluntary carbon market came in the form of Vera and GCC, and there are some markets further evolving. In 2021 and beyond, there are many more developments are happening. Countries are talking about SDM, Sustainable Development Mechanism, while the carbon market focused only on the CO2 emission reduction. The Sustainable Development Mechanism had the UN goal of different sustainable indicators, and all the companies are trying to achieve the SDMs. At the same time, India is also evolving with its own carbon market. You may be aware that like in US there is a cap and trade mechanism. In India also industries are operating with the PAT scheme, perform, achieve and trade. So each sector is given some cap, and those who are overachieving, they are able to sell their additional e-certification. It is not carbon market, but it is a sort of carbon market. Similarly, the REC market is also getting evolved in Indian context. Let's discuss a little bit about the CDM, that is the Clean Development Mechanism, which originated out of the Kyoto Protocol. We already discussed that the developed countries are typically the buyers and developing countries are typically sellers. In fact, India and China in developing countries are contributing to 75% of the carbon credit sold under CDM mechanism to the developed countries. There are about 111 countries which are participating in this mechanism, and about 1.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions or carbon credits have been registered over the CDM platform. The CER issued are about 2 billion CERs are already issued there, and India contributes about 25% of the carbon credits on the CDM market, while China contributes about 45% of this market. Now, what are the issues? The CDM market was a compliance market which was over in 2016, and now there is no compliance. So this market is no longer existing. That is the reason nowadays most of the companies are focusing on Vera registry or VCS type of carbon credits. The way we had the CDM mechanism, at the same time there is yet another mechanism was conceived by UNFCCC that was known as JI mechanism. That is known as Joint Implementation Mechanism. The JI mechanism has also some 600 plus JI project. The mechanism was such that it was allowing trading between one developed countries to the another developed countries. It was mostly European countries who are participating in this mechanism, and about 872 million emission reduction units have been registered on the JI platform. Also, Ukraine and Russia are the largest contributor to the JI mechanism. If you do little bit of Google, you will find that there are hot air issues related to the JI mechanism. So what happened for JI mechanism?